Mr. Wright's nervousness and anxiousness in being pulled over. And to be perfectly frank, Your Honor, being a black man with a firearm in the car, being pulled over by officers at 2 a.m.
He's here for an arraignment on a DUI.
Correct, Your Honor.
So you are Wesley Wright. Was that your name, sir?
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And then Mr. Stashevsky, did you get a chance to speak with him regarding his legal rights?
I did, Your Honor, and I do believe Mr. Wright understands his constitutional rights.
Do you have a position on probable cause?
Yes, Your Honor. We are contesting probable cause today.
Ms. Kidmacher, could you raise your right hand, please? You swear and affirm the information testimony you provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
You put your hand down.
On January 9th, 2025 at 03:16 hours, Trooper Boss was patrolling on southbound I-5 near milepost 96 when he observed a vehicle exhibiting lane travel. The vehicle swerved to the lane directly right of it by approximately a tire width multiple times in less than a minute. Upon stopping the vehicle, it very slowly pulled to the right shoulder. The driver was identified via Washington driver's license as Wesley Wright. He observed the defendant had bloodshot and watery eyes and was visibly very nervous. He observed the defendant had not placed the vehicle in park. The defendant was smoking a cigarette, but still the officer observed the odor of intoxicants consistent with alcoholic beverages coming from the vehicle. He was moving in a very slow manner and seemed to be dazed or confused. He became more nervous, begging the officer to let him go. He began searching for his license and the vehicle began to move forward again as it was not parked. He ordered the defendant to park the vehicle, which he did after missing the transmission at first. He fumbled with his driver's license as he obtained it. He said he had 2 beers several hours ago. Outside the vehicle, the officer observed a strong odor of intoxicants coming from his person, consistent with alcoholic beverages. On field sobriety tests, 4 out of 6 on HGN, 5 out of 8 on walk and turn, 3 out of 4 on one leg stand. He refused a PBT. He was arrested and transported to Tumwater PD. There, his BAC was 0.027 to 0.030.
Mr. Stashevsky.
Your Honor, the 2 key pieces of information I would highlight from the police report is 1, the jail BAC reading returning 0.028 through 0.03. The second test was 0.027 and 0.03. I think that information, when viewed in conjunction with the police report, says that on 2 occasions, Mr. Wright said he had consumed some alcohol beverages, quote, several hours before. Common understanding of the word several would be more than 2 hours, which I think removes this fact pattern from falling into the statutory language for the crime that Mr. Wesley has been charged with. I'd also note that there was no portable breath test here. And then, Your Honor, in terms of explaining some of the behavior here, understand that the police report documents a failed standard field sobriety test and notes that the car was not in park immediately. But the police report also details that Mr. Wright told the officers that he was scared on, I believe, more than 1 occasion. The officer noted that Mr. Wright appeared nervous, that Mr. Wright begged not to be removed from the car, and that when he was asked to leave the car, he had his hands up immediately. And Your Honor, Mr. Wright had a lawfully owned and stored firearm in the vehicle. This stop happened at 2 a.m. And so I think this behavior that the officer was observing was not showing any influence or affected by intoxicating liquor, but that was Mr. Wright's nervousness and anxiousness in being pulled over. And to be perfectly frank, Your Honor, being a black man with a firearm in the car, being pulled over by officers at 2 a.m. And so I think, but again, this is neither here nor there, but I'm not sure the stop was valid either, Your Honor. But in terms of today for probable cause, I think the key facts are that the BAC came back under 0.08 and that the report details that the only admissions made were several hours before, not within the preceding 2 hours. And then I think the behavior is very explainable in a non-being impacted by drugs situation, Your Honor.
Ms. Kidmacher, I'll give you the final word here.
Yes, Your Honor. Just to say that There's the affected by prong of the DUI RCW, and a reasonable person could conclude that the officer's observations show a person affected by intoxicating liquor. That was affecting his driving pattern and behavior, such to the extent that probable cause can be found.
So what I have in front of me is a driving pattern, apparently out of the lane. Did you say a tire width?
Yes, swerved to the lane directly right of it by approximately a tire width,
Okay.
multiple times in less than a minute.
Twice is what I heard from Mr. Shashevsky. Is that correct?
It says multiple times in less than a minute.
And this was on I-5?
I'll need to pull back up the report, I believe. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Ms. Kitmacher. Mr. Wright says it was on I-5.
Okay. And so again, I don't see any evidence of, again, which is, well, I'm going to back up here a little bit. You know, when we do DUI trials, pretty much every trial has the instruction, you know, people can consume alcohol and drive and not necessarily be under the influence of it. What I have here from Mr. Wright is, again, momentary and fairly brief. Apparently he was observed for less than a minute, maybe a tire width, which is a couple of inches, 6 inches maybe, outside of a lane on a few occasions, which frankly, given my experience on I-5, isn't all that uncommon. The behavior attributed to Mr. Wright, anyone would be nervous. Anyone who ever gets pulled over by a police officer, I think, is nervous and maybe a little bit jumpy, but I'm most persuaded by the, frankly, the test, the breath test that was given back at the station on a reading that low. I don't think the driving pattern and the behavior attributed to Mr. Wright at this point is sufficient for me to find probable cause for DUI at this time, so I'm not going to do that. Sometimes bad driving is just bad driving and not necessarily contributed to by a BAC. So I'm not going to find probable cause for DUI at this time.